Welcome to our deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're stepping into a world that's, I don't know about science fiction, but more like science in action with Stambol Studios. You sent over a really interesting collection of their articles.
Yeah.
And the theme that just jumps out is digital twins.
Yeah.
But I will say, hold on to your hard hats.
Okay.
Because Stambol isn't just, constructing buildings here.
Right.
They're building an entirely new way of thinking about how we interact with spaces.
It's true.
And we're talking everything from like mega minds to, well, maybe your future kitchen. Who knows?
Yeah, it's true. And what I think is so fascinating about it is they take these technologies that we, kind of think about as separate.
Okay.
Like building information modeling, or BIM as they call it.
Right.
And they really kind of unpack the hidden potential of it. I think a lot of times people, when they think about BIM, they're like, oh, it's a blueprint.
Right.
But Stambol's really saying that blueprint is just the very, very beginning.
Okay, so unpack that for us a little bit. What happens when a blueprint becomes bigger than just lines on a page?
Well, it becomes this dynamic, living record of a structure. And I love this phrase they use. They call it BIMfinity.
BIMfinity.
BIMfinity. And you can think about it like this. Imagine like a digital twin of your house.
Okay.
That knows where every pipe is, every wire, how much insulation you have.
So it's like a digital X-ray.
Yes.
But for your house.
Exactly.
Or for a building or for any structure.
If anything.
It's not just about what it is.
Right.
But, how's it doing years down the line?
Exactly.
And is that kind of where this Internet of Things part comes in?
Yes.
Like
sure.
all those sensors are gathering all that data?
Yes. So all those sensors are constantly feeding information back to that digital twin.
Oh, wow.
So you can think about it as like the twin has a nervous system, and it's feeling every change in temperature, air pressure, any kind of movement. And it allows us to go from this place of like reactive maintenance, like, oh no, the pipe burst, to a much more predictive.
So instead of, oh no, the basement's flooded, it's, hey, that pipe over there is acting a little thirsty. We should probably get someone to check that out.
Exactly. That's a much better way of putting it. Yeah. And they give all these examples of how powerful that can be. Like, for instance, they talk about how digital twins can be used in mining.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which is like...
Mining doesn't exactly scream high tech to me.
Yeah.
Unless we're talking about, like, digging for Bitcoin or something.
Right. Mining for NFTs.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's where, I think things get interesting, because you have all of this heavy machinery that's underground. And instead of relying on routine maintenance, which can be incredibly costly and time consuming.
Right. And they're probably still, dangerous.
Dangerous, exactly.
Because you don't know what you don't know until it's too late.
Exactly. So then the digital twin, which is connected to all these sensors, it can say, hey, this part is starting to wear down.
Right, it's going to fail.
This is going to fail. And so what that means is you have less disruption in the process. There's increased safety for the miners.
Right.
And ultimately, it's a more efficient operation.
So it's about moving from better safe than sorry to, we will be safe because we're smart.
Exactly.
Which is huge, especially when you're talking about an industry where, safety is paramount.
Absolutely. And the thing is, this is not just theoretical, right? I mean, Stambol is actually implementing these solutions. But they don't stop at giant machines and these heavy industries. They're like, no. This is something that has implications for everyday buildings, too.
Let's talk about that, because I think, most of us, thankfully, are not living in mines.
Right.
What does this mean for, the average office building or your average apartment complex?
Right. So if you think about managing a large building, you have all these different things, right? Like heating, cooling, lighting.
Right.
Even just knowing how many people are in a room at any given time. All of those things impact efficiency. They impact cost.
Sure.
So Stambol kind of envisions these buildings that are monitoring all of this stuff, feeding it back to the digital twin.
So the building is telling you, hey, I'm feeling a little warm over here. Can you maybe turn the thermostat down?
Exactly.
It's like having a super efficient building manager who never sleeps.
Yes. And not only that, but think about this. What if you could be alerted to a potential plumbing issue before it turns into a major damage situation?
Right.
Or you could optimize your space utilization based on real-time data about how many people are actually in the office that day. These are really tangible benefits that impact everybody. Building owners, the people who live there, the people who work there.
Right.
So it really does kind of trickle down.
Okay. So we've gone from blueprints to building brains. This is all incredibly cool. I will admit it's also like a little hard to wrap my head around, I'm not going to lie. Does Stambol give any examples of how this is actually playing out,
Yeah.
in the real world?
Yeah. And this is where I think their work gets really, really exciting, because they start talking about using digital twins in healthcare.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, like, imagine a patient digital twin,
Okay.
a virtual replica of you that doctors could use to diagnose illnesses,
Okay.
to test treatment options,
Wow.
even predict potential health risks.
Wow. A digital twin of me. That's both fascinating
Okay, no.
and also like slightly creepy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie.
But imagine the possibilities. I mean, what if your doctor could run simulations on your digital twin to figure out, like, what's the best course of treatment for you?
Right.
It would minimize that trial and error
Right.
and potentially lead to much better outcomes.
That's incredible. But I'm guessing this is where it also gets incredibly complicated.
It does.
Ethically.
Yeah.
But the potential benefits there are huge.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, again, it speaks to this idea of Stambol pushing the boundaries, using technology to solve these really complex problems.
So we've covered BIMfinity. We've got digital x-rays for buildings.
Right.
We've even like dipped our toes into the waters of digital healthcare.
I know.
Where do we go from here? What's next on our Stambol Studios journey?
Well, they don't stop there, because they're like, we've done buildings, we've done bodies. Let's talk about cities.
Oh, okay.
Buckle up.
All right. I love when things get interesting.
Because here we go. We're going to the smart cities.
Let's dive into the world of smart cities after this quick break. So we're back, and we're about to leave the familiar streets of building brains and step into the metropolis of smart cities.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, you hear that phrase thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
But what I like about how Stambol's approaching it is it feels very grounded in reality.
Yeah, it's refreshing, actually. They're not getting lost in futuristic fantasies. They're really looking at the challenges that cities are facing right now, like traffic congestion,
Right.
aging infrastructure, resource management, all of that. Sure. And saying, okay, how can we use this digital twin technology to help us solve these problems today?
So less about flying cars and more about making sure the garbage gets collected on time.
Exactly.
The potholes get filled.
Precisely. I mean, they give the example of public transportation, right?
Yeah.
Imagine a city where your bus routes and train routes aren't fixed, but they're dynamically adjusting based on real-time demand, based on traffic patterns.
Okay, now that would be a game changer for my morning commute.
Right.
How does that even work? Is it sensors on every street corner?
In a way, yes. You would have sensors everywhere.
Okay.
In vehicles, at bus stops, tracking pedestrian traffic.
Oh, wow.
And all of that information is feeding back to a central digital twin of the transportation network.
So it's like having a giant Waze app
Yes.
for the entire city.
For the entire city, constantly crunching the data, figuring out the most efficient way to move people.
That's amazing.
Right.
And I would imagine you could also use that for things like safety and security, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. What if those same sensors, could identify potential crime hotspots?
Right.
Or maybe predict where accidents are more likely to occur?
Right. So you can kind of proactively.
Exactly. You're proactively deploying your resources.
Wow, that is powerful. But I'm not going to lie, part of me also finds that a little, I don't know, a little uneasy, right? All those sensors, all that data, it's
Right.
Are we headed towards a surveillance state? I don't know.
It's a valid concern, and it's something that, Stambol acknowledges.
Yeah.
You have to find that balance, right?
Right.
Between the convenience and the privacy.
Right.
And they really emphasize the need for transparency,
Okay.
public engagement.
Okay.
How are these technologies being implemented? It shouldn't be technology dictating the terms. It should be about using this technology to create cities that work better for everyone.
That makes sense. It's great to have a smart city, but not at the expense of, our individual freedoms, right?
Right.
Speaking of cool tech, though, what was that they were saying about smart walls?
Oh, yeah.
That sounded like something straight out of the Jetsons.
Yes. This idea that, the very surfaces of our homes and buildings could become dynamic and responsive.
Okay.
Imagine walls that radiate heat
Okay.
that project, like calming images, or even like adjust their transparency based on the weather outside.
Okay, that's just cool. Sign me up for the wall that's a giant window that overlooks the ocean.
Right.
But how does that fit into, like, the whole smart city picture?
Well, it's about moving beyond the traditional boundaries of what a building can be, right? So imagine structures that aren't just energy efficient, but they adapt to the needs of the people inside of them. And so Stambol sees this as a key part of creating these more sustainable, more livable, ultimately more human-centered urban environments.
It's like our homes and our buildings are almost becoming like characters in the story of the city?
Yes.
Responding and adapting along with us.
Exactly. And that's what I think is so compelling about Stambol's vision, right?
Okay.
They're not just interested in the technology itself. It's how can we use this technology to address real world problems, to improve people's lives.
Yeah.
They see this future where technology doesn't isolate us, but it connects us.
Right.
And it creates cities that are as much about community and well-being
Right.
as they are about efficiency and innovation.
It's a future I can get behind.
Right.
Let's, we've been talking a lot about, buildings and cities.
Yeah.
But what about robots? What about robots?
Oh, yeah.
Stambol mentioned something about, like, using virtual reality to train robots, right?
Yes, they highlighted this really interesting work that Toyota's been doing, where they're using VR to train robots for housework.
Wait, hold on. Are we talking robot maids here? Because if so, sign me up.
Not quite yet,
Okay.
but we're getting closer.
Okay.
The interesting thing is they're using VR to teach robots how to navigate the unpredictable environments of our homes.
Okay.
So like how to pick up objects that are different shapes and sizes, dealing with clutter,
Okay.
things that are still very challenging for robots today.
So no more robot vacuum cleaner getting stuck under the couch.
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
That's a win in my book. But on a more serious note, what is that like, what does that tell us about Stambol?
Well, I think it speaks to their emphasis on human-centered design,
Okay.
right? It's not just about, oh, let's create a robot because we can.
Right.
It's like, how can we develop technology that integrates seamlessly into our lives,
Right.
that can take over some of these mundane tasks and free us up to focus on, arguably more important things.
It's like they're saying, let's use technology to take care of the mundane so we can focus on the extraordinary.
Yes.
I like that. I like that a lot.
And you see that thread of human-centered design really running through everything that they do. It's not about building smarter cities. It's about building a smarter future for all of us.
Yes. Okay, so we've gone from buildings with brains to cities that think.
Yeah.
And even robots learning to navigate our, messy realities.
It's true.
I have to say, Stambol Studios, not short on ambition.
No, not at all.
But before we get too caught up in the awe of it all,
Yeah.
let's bring it back down to earth for a second, right?
Yeah.
Because you're probably thinking, like, this is all fascinating.
Right.
But what does it actually mean for,
Right.
me, my life?
Exactly.
Like,
Right.
what's the takeaway here?
And that's the crucial question, right?
Right.
Because it's easy to look at all these advancements and be like, oh, that's cool, but it's kind of out there.
Right.
But the truth is, this is already kind of weaving its way into our daily routines.
Really?
Yeah.
Give me an example.
Okay, so think about your commute.
Okay.
Think about the last time you used a navigation app
Sure.
to find the quickest route, right?
Right.
Or how, streaming services
Right.
seem to know exactly what you want to watch.
Yes, it's a little creepy.
Right. Well, all of that is powered by algorithms that are constantly collecting data, analyzing data, optimizing systems in real time.
Sure.
Smart cities are essentially taking that concept and applying it to the entire urban landscape.
So it's like all those, personalized recommendations that we're used to.
Exactly.
They're just like a tiny little taste of what's to come.
Exactly.
And my whole life is going to become this giant optimized algorithm.
Not your whole life, but you can imagine a world, right, where, let's say, your commute.
Yeah.
It's not just efficient because you're getting there quickly, but your car is communicating with the traffic grid
Oh, wow.
to reduce congestion.
Okay.
Maybe it's suggesting alternative routes or modes of transportation.
Okay, yeah, now that's a future I can get behind.
Right.
Less time stuck in traffic means more time for, listening to podcasts,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But no, I mean, it's exciting to think about how this technology can make our lives
Yeah.
not just easier, but richer. more connected.
And that's the thing. It's not just about efficiency for the sake of efficiency.
Right.
It's not about convenience for the sake of convenience.
Sure.
It's about, like, how do we use this technology to actually enhance our human experience?
Okay.
Stambol actually talks about this. They're like, we want to create spaces that aren't just smart,
Right.
but they're sustainable, they're equitable,
Right.
they're even, like, joyful to inhabit.
It's not just about making things work better.
Yes.
It's about making them work better for us.
Exact.
For people. I like that.
For humans, yeah. And I think that's something that sometimes gets lost
Sure.
in these conversations about technology.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point.
It's like we can't forget about the human element.
Yeah, and I think that's what's been so fascinating about, this deep dive into Stambol Studios.
Right.
Is that they seem to really get that right.
They do. They really do, which is, again, refreshing.
It's not just about the tech itself. It's about the why behind the tech.
Exactly. It's about the purpose.
Yeah, and what kind of future we're trying to build.
Exactly.
And it seems like Stambol's really thinking about that in a very, holistic and human-centered way,
Absolutely.
which I appreciate.
As do I. As do I.
Well, on that note, I think we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have. We've covered a lot.
From, tiny sensors to smart cities
Yeah.
and everything in between.
It's pretty amazing.
It's been fascinating.
Yeah.
And I think this is one of those conversations that we could probably continue for hours.
Oh, absolutely.
But alas, all good things must come to an end.
They do. They do.
So for everyone listening, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Stambol Studios.
Yes. Thank you.
We hope you found it as fascinating and thought-provoking as we did.
Absolutely. And who knows what the future holds?
Exactly. But we're excited to see it unfold.
Me too. Me too.